Welcome to tonight's tale of terror. They say some curses cling tighter than shadows, never seen but always felt. Tonight we unravel the story of the cursed hair, a tale that whispers through the silence, coils in the dark, and binds those who dare to touch it. So lock your doors, dim the lights, and prepare yourself, because once you hear this story, you may never look at hair the same way again. Daniel slammed his hand onto the car radio's power button. He felt terrible. Anxiety puckered his brow, sweat welded his temples, and his eyes behind his glasses looked restless. Every few moments he checked the clock. His hands tightened on the wheel. The road ahead was empty and pitch black. The headlights only reached about 15 feet. Because the road was so deserted, Daniel pressed the accelerator harder, and the car shot forward into the night. About 2 hours earlier, the hospital had called to say his fiancée had fled her room. She hadn't come home and wasn't answering her phone. They had no choice but to call him. Daniel felt his chest burn thinking of it. He feared she might do something desperate. She was undergoing treatment for a cruel form of blood cancer. After several radiotherapy sessions, her hair had fallen out down to the scalp, and the doctors had also found early signs of depression. They prescribed medication, but her condition barely improved. The hospital recommended combining psychotherapy with medication to help her. Most of the depression in Daniel's fiancée stemmed from her fear that he would cancel their engagement and abandon her. Daniel understood the weight of his responsibility. He always arranged time to visit her, at least every 2 days. But today he couldn't. He had an unexpected business trip and could only call. She had gone silent and hung up. At that moment, Daniel had a very bad feeling. As soon as he got the warning call a few hours ago, he drove back to look for her. Rang. Lost in thought, the phone on the dash suddenly lit up. The caller ID read, Emily. It was her. Daniel grabbed the phone and answered. His voice rushed out like an order. Where are you? Please, Daniel, help me. Her sobbing, broken voice through the line hit Daniel like an electric shock. He shifted his gaze from under the wheel to the windshield. In the headlight beam, something suddenly appeared. Before he could make sense of it, the car hit it. A blotchy mass slapped against the glass. Daniel hurled the phone aside, gripped the wheel, eased off the gas and stomped the brakes, but he couldn't prevent the impact. The thing on the windshield seemed to smear and break into sticky strands. It wasn't blood. At that moment, he realized it was some object. Certainly not water splashing on the glass. It was soft and separated into thin strands. Daniel watched it slide down, as if a head full of hair were slowly falling off the glass. By the time the car stopped, he was still stunned. Then more rapidly, the strange thing moved. It crawled to the left across the windshield in a flash. The strands reconnected and moved on their own. In an instant, the glass in front of him was clean. Daniel kept his eyes fixed for a few seconds, wondering if it had been hair, and if so, from whose head. Maybe he had struck a pedestrian who had tumbled to the left. He opened the door immediately, but there was no sign of any collision outside. No one lay on the road, there was nothing under the car, and beyond the reach of his headlights lay only darkness. Daniel frowned. At that speed, whoever he'd hit would have suffered broken bones. How could they simply vanish? He felt a chill. A doubt washed over him. When the car hit that thing, he was sure he hadn't heard a sound, nor felt any external shock. It was like the car had hit empty air. He glanced at the windshield and noticed more hair caught in the wiper blades. Long, jet-black strands that seemed to twitch like tentacles, clinging to the glass then wrapping around the mirror. But when he looked back a moment later, they hung limp. Still, seeing them made the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. This was odd. He had been fully conscious when the car hit that thing. Wait, he retraced where it had come from. He pressed his lips tight. Had he misseen? A sudden flicker of light had come from the right and seemed to sweep across. Perhaps a tuft of hair had flown from the right, and he'd accidentally collided with it. He glanced to the right. An empty field spread out, utterly barren. How could a heap of hair appear there? Where was it headed? Daniel thought, and his spine chilled. To the left, where it had crawled, was behind him. He dared not turn his head. He checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Best to leave, he decided, and hurried back into the car, locked the door, and started the engine. Remembering the interrupted call with Emily, Daniel looked around and found he'd dropped his phone on the floor. The call had ended. He tried calling back but couldn't reach her. Worry pressed in like the night around him. She called for help, he thought, unable to imagine what horrors might befall her. Where should he start looking? Frantically, he searched his contacts for anyone linked to Emily. Suddenly, he remembered Michael, who worked at the phone operator's office. Michael could possibly trace the call or find the last signal location of her number. Daniel phoned him. Luckily, Michael was on duty and agreed to help, saying he'd call back with results. Daniel kept driving toward the hospital to learn if Emily had shown any unusual behavior before leaving. He was tense, but his instincts kept wandering from the road. He glanced at the left window occasionally, feeling that the hair he'd just seen was familiar. He had bought a wig for Emily, black, long, down to her waist, the same length as the strands he'd just encountered. Now that he thought about it, many strange things had happened recently, and they all seemed to relate to one word: hair. Emily Turner, 26, had been diagnosed with stage 2 leukemia. Before that, she had been busy preparing for their wedding scheduled for the coming month. The disaster struck when she went to the groom's house to finalize invitations. Her vision blurred, the world darkened, her nose bled, and she collapsed. The wedding was postponed indefinitely. The hospital recommended 6 months of radiotherapy and urged the family to prepare to support her psychologically. Emily knew her future in-laws might not agree to the marriage any longer. Doctors warned that her chance of conceiving was low, and she might not have enough blood to sustain a pregnancy. In that storm, Daniel had been constantly by her side, encouraging her to endure the difficult treatment. Without noticing, he had become her lifeline. After 2 months of radiotherapy, seeing him visit every day steadied her. By the 3rd month, Emily had side effects from treatment. Her skin dried and cracked, and hair began to fall out. By the 4th month, the scalp showed bare patches, and her hair had thinned drastically. Emily grew fearful that Daniel might withdraw when he saw her like this. She always suspected he was avoiding her, looking away or burying his face in his phone. She imagined that if she lost all her hair, he would leave her. He was 32, and if she didn't recover soon, his family might urge him to marry someone else. How could she keep him? That fear pushed Emily into depression. She didn't want to meet or talk to anyone but Daniel. Her possessiveness had never been so strong. Every minute she wanted to claim him for herself, grew suspicious of everyone else, and trusted no one. Doctors later discovered Emily's depression when she became almost numb to external stimuli. They prescribed medication, but she wasn't improving. She was obsessed with her hair loss and had become oppositional. She assaulted medical staff, and they found that she was hiding the pills meant to be swallowed in crevices around her bed. She only kept them in her mouth without swallowing. After staff left, she spat the pills out and stuffed them into every gap. The pile of pills found under the bed was enough to scoop up. That made treating Emily's depression much more difficult. Daniel was the only person she trusted. Whatever he said, she followed. Doctors met with Daniel to discuss her condition. He understood what he had to do and tried to spend more time with her, talking to lift her spirits. He promised that once she recovered, they would get married. Emily had one long-standing worry and one day confided it. "My hair has fallen out like this. Can I still be a bride?" Hair can grow back. What's important is your health. Only by taking your medicine will you get better. When your hair is long again, we'll have the wedding, Daniel said tenderly. "No, I want to leave the hospital and get married right away." Daniel saw the pleading in her eyes and smiled. "Do you want a present from me?" "Yes, anything from you I like." "Then I'll give you one soon, but for now, take your medicine. The doctor will come check you." What Daniel had in mind was a wig identical to Emily's former hair. She had always taken pride in her long, glossy hair. Losing it had stripped her of that pride. He would order a wig just like it and hoped when she wore it, she would regain confidence and continue treatment. On his way home, he dwelt on the plan. A long, shiny black mane, soft to the touch, it was hard to picture. If he'd had a photo, he wouldn't have worried so much. At the traffic light, the light turned red and he stopped in front of a bus. He glanced through the bus's rear window and froze. 3 women sat on the last row. 2 had their hair tied up and the middle one wore her hair loose. Her hair fell past her waist, straight and jet black, the exact style Daniel imagined. He was transfixed. After a moment, he noticed something off. The bus window was closed, the air conditioning blowing downwards. Why was her hair blowing upward as if from below, nearly reaching her neck? On closer inspection, it wasn't wind. It looked as though someone repeatedly flipped the hair up from below in a continuous motion. The hair rose then fell again, yet the woman remained perfectly still during the 60 seconds the light was red. Daniel couldn't look away. Maybe she was flicking her hair with her hand. But her hands rested and her shoulders slumped oddly. Compared to the 2 women beside her, her shoulders and arms hung straight down. Normally when seated, the shoulders are squared with the torso. Hers drooped unnaturally. It looked like she was being suspended. An image rose in Daniel's mind of a person hanged. The body suspended, shoulders limp, arms pasted to the sides, head bent and neck twisted by the weight. He shivered. The air from the bus's vents felt cold on his face. Fixated on the hair, Daniel realized that the woman seemed to have no nape. The hair kept floating as if not attached to a scalp. Behind the hair was a dark void. He squinted and saw half a face emerge. The head bent deeply, chin touching the throat, and he could only see from the forehead to the bridge of the nose. Daniel went pale with horror. A corpse hanged on the bus and staring right at him. Yet the 2 women beside her seemed unaware, chatting and even laughing. Bim, bim, a frantic horn sounded behind him. Daniel checked his rearview mirror and saw many cars flashing their lights. The signal had turned green and the bus pulled away. As Daniel eased his car forward, curiosity made him glance again at the bus's rear window. The 3 were still there. The woman in the middle turned her face to one side and smiled, tilting her head like she listened. She was alive. She even smoothed her hair when animated. Nothing about her posture looked strange now. Daniel accelerated, convinced briefly that he'd been mistaken. But the earlier images were too bizarre to dismiss. Recalling those minutes, he'd first been drawn to the woman's long black hair, and then the macabre visions followed. It was hard to find a rational explanation. He'd been obsessing over one thing, hair, and the mind produces associations, either comforting or disturbing. This was inherent suggestion. Under pressure, such images can arise. Yet Daniel couldn't understand why he imagined a hanged woman. It was the long flowing hair that haunted him. He wanted to buy a wig, not one made of a corpse's hair though. A few days later, Daniel went to a wig shop to order one for Emily. Mr. Collins greeted him warmly and explained the shop had been making wigs by sewing hair onto a skin-colored base for 30 years. The craftsmanship was such that you couldn't tell real from fake at a glance. Materials ranged from cheap synthetic to expensive human hair. Daniel, unfamiliar with wig making, asked where human hair came from. Mr. Collins showed him a wig made of real hair and explained some women who grow their hair will cut it and sell it to collectors, who then sell to shops like his. Daniel ran his fingers through it. It was truly soft and glossy, the hair sewn firmly into the base, indistinguishable from real hair. They talked more, and before leaving, Daniel ordered a custom human hair wig. He carefully specified style and size, no room for mistake. Night fell as he left. He drove to the hospital to tell Emily the gift would be ready in 5 days. It cheered her. Doctor said her mood had improved as she was talking more. She happily recounted the secret gift and the wedding plans. Hours passed and visiting time ended. Daniel bid Emily goodbye and went down to the underground parking. The hospital's parking garage sat opposite the morgue and crematorium. The garage exit lay behind the clinic row. Beyond the corridor was a special block. The first floor housed the morgue and crematory, while floors 2 through 4 stored anatomical specimens and served as dissection labs. The place felt gloomy at night. Just a short walk to the main gate and Daniel felt uneasy. His car was tucked in a corner near a white 4-door Lexus. Its interior light was on. Someone had probably just been inside and was about to leave. Daniel pressed his remote and passed by the Lexus. His footsteps slowed. From the overhead light inside the car, a horrifying scene stared back. A woman sat with her arms limp at her sides, head thrown back. Under the bright light, Daniel could see a large hole punched right through her face from front to back, about the size of a small child's fist, as if impaled by a steel pipe. Blood soaked her clothes. Her eyes stared at the ceiling. Blood poured from her eye sockets down to her ears. Her shoulders twitched occasionally. After each spasm, more blood sprayed out. Daniel froze, unable to cry for help. His throat had closed. Witnessing such a grisly sight, any sane person would be terrified. Daniel flailed, looking around for aid. His hands shook uncontrollably. His mind spun and his stomach retched. Amid that shock, a question leapt into his head. Was she already dead? To be sure, he looked again. With such a wound, she must be gone. But then he saw the woman's head move, her cranial top trembling at an awful rate. Daniel stared into the hole and felt as if some terrible secret hid inside. His grip tightened unconsciously. He wanted to know what lay in her skull. Blood sprayed across the windshield, steering wheel, and passenger seat. The woman jerked as if strapped to an electric chair, and bits of brain matter flung out like clumps of mush. Daniel's heart hammered. He leaned toward the car, eyes wide at the macabre sight. Clang! He jumped back a few steps. Cold sweat beaded his brow. The car's running lights flicked on, dazzling him. He shielded his eyes and peered through his fingers. Now the woman in the Lexus gripped the steering wheel. Her face was intact, not a mark on it. Daniel released his hands in disbelief and stared. She noticed him blocking the way, glanced repeatedly toward him with an annoyed, strange expression, then honked repeatedly. The cacophony snapped Daniel back to himself. He realized he'd been standing directly in front of her car and hurried aside as it drove off. Even as it left, Daniel replayed what he'd seen. It had been so real, he thought. The terror lingered as his heart pounded. He recalled that before the dazzle of lights had blinded him, he'd seen something worse. Hair. Many hairs pouring from the hole in the woman's face, as if the hair had eaten out her head, trailing with the blood like a waterfall, the matted strands filling the cavity and reaching her chest. But that was likely imagination, Daniel sighed. He told himself recent stress at work had exhausted him. He pinched his eyelids and then went to a small bar to drink. The bar had no music and few customers. Some acquaintances were there, and he joined them. A bit of alcohol eased the haunting images. By 1 a.m, Daniel finally went home, feeling lighter. 5 days later, he returned to the wig shop, and Mr. Ba Collins presented the wig he'd ordered. The length, style, and color were perfect. Daniel pictured how happy Emily would be wearing it. He still had errands and left the wig locked in his car until evening. When he finally remembered it, it was late and the hospital was closed to visitors. He planned to bring it the next day. He placed the wig's box on his table and went to shower. In the bathroom, he splashed water on his face. Looking at himself, his eyes were rimmed dark and his cheeks hollowed. He should take better care of himself. Suddenly he startled. A shadow had appeared. The mirror faced the bathroom door, and beyond that, a large window with frosted glass opened to the outside. Light from the building opposite filtered through. A dark shape seemed to eclipse that glow. Daniel spun and saw only the normal outside light. The shadow was gone. He watched for a moment and saw nothing, assuming someone had walked outside. He calmed and continued washing. But this was the 10th floor. There was no balcony. No one could be standing out there. Daniel raised his head, and in the mirror the shadow was clear. A long, thin head, as if someone with loose hair were pressed against the glass. He panicked and turned. For a fraction of a second the shadow stood there, then vanished. He strained to look. When he checked the mirror, it reappeared. The outline was sharp, as if a head were glued to the doorway. Daniel picked up a small pair of scissors from his toiletries, convinced someone had broken in and was peering in. He grasped the door handle, swallowed, and tightened his grip on the scissors. With a swift movement, he flung the bathroom door open, poised to strike, and found the hallway empty. He turned the lights on and searched every corner. Back in the bedroom and kitchen, he saw nothing unusual, until his eyes fell on the wig box on the glass table. The lid was slightly ajar, a gap about half a palm wide. Daniel frowned. When had he opened it? He hadn't touched the box since bringing it home. If he hadn't opened it, who had? To dismiss the thought, he convinced himself he'd opened it earlier. He checked the apartment again, found nothing, and returned to sit on the couch. He lifted the lid. The wig's hair cascaded out like a bowed head drooping over the table. He smoothed it, lifted the wig, and admired the craftsmanship. The hair was luscious and soft, as luxurious as silk. He ran his hand through it, and the strands seemed to cling to his fingers. Under the soft light, the hair seemed almost alive, making him want to stroke it endlessly. Then his phone buzzed. A news app. Daniel, busy with work, had installed a daily newsreader. He picked up the wig and went to the coat hook to get his phone. Not wanting to wrinkle the wig, he draped it on a hanger over a shirt, which looked like someone bowing their head with hair falling. Superstitious people find that disrespectful, but he didn't notice. His thumb flicked through headlines and one leapt out. College girl commits suicide in her room. The article said a young woman had been found dead in her bedroom 10 days earlier, hanging by a rope. In her hand was a pair of scissors, and her other hand clutched a wad of long hair. Commenters debated whether she'd been murdered. Why did the hair in her hand reach to the waist, while her own hair had been cut short at the nape? Scrolling down, people speculated the long hair might have belonged to the perpetrator. Others argued that if it were the killer's hair, why leave it behind, unless the killer wanted to taunt the law? Daniel stared at the crime scene photo widely shared online. The image felt eerily familiar, as if he'd seen it recently. The hanged girl's posture, shoulders limp, arms dangling, head bowed, matched the woman he had seen on the bus. The image on his phone seemed to move. Instead of a stiff corpse, he saw a girl smile and stroke her hair, then her face contort, as if she grabbed scissors and tried to cut that long hair. After one cut, a rope appeared and pulled her up. Her limbs went limp and she swung like a pendulum. Daniel's hand trembled and he closed the article. Another headline: Steel pipe falls at construction site, kills worker. He tapped it. The first photo showed the Lexus he'd seen, its windshield shattered by a steel pipe protruding into the cabin. Blood splattered across the glass and seats. The report suggested the victim was a woman. The picture showed arms limp by the seat and the head thrown back. Daniel was stunned. Could that be the woman he'd spotted in the parking garage? He had seen her 5 days before the accident. The collision had occurred 2 days ago. The gap between what he had witnessed and reality was 3 days. What was the connection? Daniel's scalp prickled. Images of the woman alive with hair over her face kept coming to mind. Why did a mysterious mass of hair appear to him? He looked away from the screen at the window, reflecting his back. The wig he'd been staring at had vanished from the hook. His heart skipped a beat. He thought he'd dropped his phone. He turned. The hook was empty. He looked down and found the wig on the floor a few steps away, fallen from the hanger with its headpiece pointed toward him. It was just a wig, an inanimate object. When had he become so jumpy? He picked it up and brushed it off. It looked ordinary. He carefully put it back in the box and closed the lid. He was tired and wanted only sleep to forget these troubling thoughts. The next day, Daniel brought the gift to Emily. He expected her face to light up, but she only stared at it in surprise. He urged her to try it on. After adjusting the wig, they looked into the mirror. Daniel's face brightened. Emily's grew paler and more vacant. Fear showed on her face. She jerked the wig off and refused to look in the mirror. Daniel was puzzled. "Don't you like it? I tried to make it just like your old hair," he asked. She looked at him with frightened eyes, and in her panic he thought he heard, "Don't you like me?" She clutched his hands as if about to cry. "Of course I like it. I like it very much." He felt sorrow for her. Maybe Emily couldn't yet accept this change. He hugged her trembling shoulders, holding her tight. She pressed to his chest and sobbed. He murmured, "I know. Take your time. You'll get used to it. When you recover, we'll get married. If your hair doesn't grow fast enough, use this wig. You'll still be the most beautiful bride. Don't worry." His warm words might once have made her swoon, but now something inside her wavered. A rising, invisible fear took over. What she had just seen made her terrified. How could he not see it? In the mirror, she hadn't seen Emily with long hair. She had seen someone else entirely, someone she recognized and feared. Once she had been prone to fights at school. After a terrible incident, her whole life changed and she became someone else. What could force such a drastic shift? The matter involved people's lives. Whether directly or indirectly causing death feels much the same. When Daniel left the hospital, Emily quickly shoved the wig back into the box, afraid to do so in his presence. She knew he'd bought it especially for her. How could she disappoint him? If she did, what if he grew disgusted and left? She blamed herself. She snapped the lid on the box and shoved it under the bed. She dared to glance in the mirror, only then she saw a drawn, ugly face looking back. A bitter taste filled her mouth, and the medication she had just taken felt stuck in her throat. She rushed to the bathroom to force herself to vomit. The pills had turned her body strange, she thought. The doctors didn't tell her what the meds were doing. She felt enraged. She had seen a nurse smiling at Daniel. Perhaps the nurse flirted with him. A man like him would attract attention. The thought of that nurse trying to take him away consumed her. She bit hard into her thumb until it bled, thinking she had to confront the nurse. And at that precise moment the nurse entered. Emily smiled coldly as the nurse pushed a cart of snacks into the room. The nurse wanted Emily to eat to keep her strength, but Emily suspected she meant to poison her. The nurse used scissors to cut open a package and handed Emily a cake. Emily stared at the scissors on the tray and suddenly said, "Could you get me a sip of water? I'm thirsty." The nurse turned with a cheerful nod. In that instant, Emily grabbed the scissors, slipped from the bed and crept behind the nurse. As the nurse turned, Emily smashed the cake into her face and shoved her backward. The nurse hit her head on the table and staggered, dazed. Emily lunged, grabbed the nurse's hair, and used the scissors to snip furiously. When she had a fistful of hair, she stuffed it into her clothes and bolted out of the room. People were moving in the corridor. Instinct told Emily to run and find Daniel. The hospital found the nurse unconscious in Emily's room. Though physically not severely injured, she was deeply shaken and recounted the episode, explaining Emily's actions until she passed out. Hospital security scoured the premises. CCTV showed Emily had left. They contacted her family and discussed what to do. Calls to her phone went unanswered. Finally, they called Daniel. The news sent him into a frantic rush home. The strange events of the past days had unsettled him. Driving, he tried to keep his mind off bad thoughts by listening to the radio. The broadcast mentioned the recent college girl suicide, with forensic findings about the hair sample recovered. Analysts concluded the hair came from someone dead for a long time. Coincidentally, an identical sample surfaced in the pipe accident case. Daniel turned the radio off, throttled the car and drove faster. His dread swelled. He called Emily again, but couldn't reach her. What could have happened? At the hospital, staff told him about the pills stashed under the bed, in a paper box, the wig box, found under the bed frame. Had Emily taken it? To Daniel, the box suddenly became a deadly threat. He couldn't be sure it was harmful, but his intuition told him it meant trouble. He hurried out of the hospital, drove to find her. Not knowing where to go, his phone rang. Michael had traced Emily's signal. It was 3 kilometers behind him to the left. Daniel pivoted the car. If he drove 3 kilometers, he'd pass empty fields. The trace pointed to a residential area near a side road. Emily might have followed. He sped there, then slowed to search the neighborhood, calling her number as he walked between dark houses. Streetlights blinked and the far railroad tracks were faintly visible. He called her name. "Emily, I'm here to take you home." Only the sound of his footsteps in the wind answered. Then near the tracks a flicker of light flashed. He ran toward it, shouting her name hoarsely until his throat burned. He saw a small, skinny figure ahead. Emily had wandered from the hospital along a side road to the tracks. At his call, she paused and turned. She draped the nurse's cut hair over her head. Loose strands hung over her shoulders and covered her face. As she snapped back to awareness, she saw Daniel running and swayed. "Daniel," she said, "you're finally here." "I'm here. Don't go anywhere. I'll bring you home," Daniel shouted so she'd hear him in the dark. "Do you like my hair now? Is this hair long enough for you? I like you no matter what. I'm sorry, stay right where you are. I'll take you home. It's so cold out here." His breath came hard, his legs felt heavy. "Really?" she began, then abruptly fell silent. Daniel froze, then heard the distant thunder of an oncoming train. "How could you trick me? Why did you bring it here? Are you trying to kill me?" Emily suddenly screamed. her voice sharp as she stepped back. "What?" Daniel looked around in surprise. No one else was there. "It's beside you. It clings to your shoulder, hanging on you. You're trying to trick me." She pointed at him. The words chilled him. What did she see? The railroad clearing was empty, but Emily saw a mangled figure clinging to his shoulder, hair flowing to his waist, a head cocked at an impossible angle, as if unable to stay on a neck. As Daniel stepped closer, she imagined the stench of blood and flesh. It had a rotting, dismembered body, patches of skin clinging to bone. Its arm reached across his shoulder as if to grab at Emily. It moved parallel to Daniel's arm, each step bringing it closer to touching her. Emily backed toward the tracks. Daniel screamed again. He tried to tell her a train was coming and to pull her away, but his legs moved only an inch at a time. His body felt heavy as if weighted down, his knees weak. He was helpless as she stood there. The train's lights swept across her, and in an instant she turned into a smear of gore under the wheels. The engine dragged her 200 meters before stopping. Daniel's world shut down. He collapsed. After that horrific scene, he nearly lost his mind. He quit his job and entered psychiatric care. He was haunted for a long time by Emily's last words before the train struck. "It's beside you." He would look left and right, hair prickling, scalp numb, chills crawling up his spine. "It clings to your shoulder." He would touch his shoulders and back, feel nothing, but the absence only intensified his fear. "It grabs your hand." Suddenly hair would fall at his feet. Every flurry just revealed more strands. Panicked, Daniel rushed to splash water on his arms. The water ran red. Blood. He looked up at the bathroom mirror, and it was not only himself reflected. A head full of hair appeared on his shoulder in the glass. Under the hair was a shattered face, no features intact, a grotesque ruin. He stared at that face until he screamed, "It's you!" Shortly after, flames erupted in the 10th floor apartment. The door was locked from inside. The fire roared and heated the air. Inside, screams echoed, not cries for help, but a repeated chant. "I'll kill you. I'll kill you. You killed my love. I will kill you." When the fire was finally put out, the apartment was a charred ruin. Amid the ashes lay a blackened, curled body. Investigators identified the victim as Daniel Walker, the apartment's owner. 2 months earlier, his fiancée had been killed by a train. He had succumbed to shock and developed severe psychosis. The blaze was caused by his self-immolation. Luckily, the fire didn't spread. Fire crews recovered an intact wig from the debris, later reported stolen from storage. With no further leads, the case was closed. A decade before, after the girl had thrown herself onto the tracks, her body ripped apart by the train. An old woman passing the scene scooped up the tangled hair and sold it to a wig maker. The shop cleaned and restored the hair. During sewing, the tailor accidentally pierced a blood vessel with the sewing needle, which carried a strand into his hand. He was dead by morning. The hair had soaked the tailor's blood. The dead girl's vengeful spirit lived inside the strand. People bought and resold the hair many times without suspecting anything. At first, it only wanted to find the one who had caused its owner's death. But over the years, those who tried to cut or destroy it met terrible ends. 10 years on, the hair seemed to have forgotten its original purpose. It would occasionally appear in wig shops, waiting for its next unlucky owner. A perpetual, endless cycle. And that's where tonight's tale ends. Tell me, what do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't Sleep is listening. If the story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends. And make sure you subscribe to Don't Sleep right now, so you'll be the first to hear the next story creeping out of the dark. Thank you for watching. If you're still awake,